No problem. Thank you very much. It's very exciting. So yeah, thanks for inviting us to speak. And Katie and I were just talking about how it's a complete privilege to actually talk to people about what you think is just your job, but actually it's not just your job, but there's sort of passion in there, which we'll get to. So I'm Christine. I work in the academic development team with Katie and just a few others. It's a really small team. My background is in sport and fitness, but I've basically focused on education for the last 10 years. And I'll introduce Katie on her behalf. We'll do some swapping as we go through this. So Katie's half the week with academic development and half in her science role. She's got a PhD in microbiology, she's teaching 16 years and worked in academic development with myself for 8 years. So in academic development in the college world, we've got the remit to support all staff, and with us in Dundee and Angus College, we've got about 800 staff at the moment, but particularly our remit covers the 400 plus academic staff we've got with regards to their teaching qualifications and that bigger sort of spectrum of professional learning. So where does sustainability fit into this? I guess it's been a passion for years for Katie and myself and colleagues who are driven by it's the right thing to do. It seems to be our mantra these days. There's no specific sustainability role in the college, particularly for education. So we decided, didn't ask permission, we just did it. We took on this role to help others to see that sustainability is about the whole of the sustainable development goals that you can see on the screen, and everyone's already supporting them in some way, shape or form. So I guess to set us off, colleges are often thought of as being about doing, and that happens for a reason. We think a lot, but we do an awful lot, and that's what's going to form the basis of this session. So over the next 30 minutes or so, and I've put a note to myself to bit of warning that Katie and I have formed for overrunning on sessions like this. We get quite excited. But Katie and I will take you on a whistle-stop tour of our sustainability journey over the last 6 years, as it really all started in 2019. However, before we do kick off, one of the best things that is absolutely best things that has come from our sustainability journey has been the connections to like-minded people throughout the college that we didn't have those connections beforehand. So Fee O'Divon is a lecturer in construction, and he spent decades working on construction sites. He's a joiner, but unbeknownst to us and his colleagues, he's actually a very adept and now published poet. So let me read you one of his poems called Deletion Extinction. It was inspired by the work of Robert Macfarlane and Jackie Morris's book, The Lost Words, which is fundamentally about words that were removed from the Oxford Junior Dictionary. So, Deletion Extinction by Fiachra O'Divon. I had to get him to just remind me how to say his full name because we just know him as Fee. No mighty oaks without acorn, nor hurleys from ash, no beeches or bluebells on forestry paths. Exanime, ivy, hazel, heather and fern once were beautiful trees, not just names for wee girls. What will our grandchildren hold neath their chins if buttercup vanishes along with catkin? An autumn sans conquers is a childhood deprived, as a swan with no signet is a mother denied. How can there be time without dandelion clocks or stiff Christmas kisses with mistletoe chopped? Will we still weep like willows or sing like a lark? Is the kingfisher now just an electric blue spark? No more will we be as pissed as a newt, has nectar just become a shopping pursuit? No bramble for crumble, no clover for luck, the adder passé without Patrick's crook. And now our pasture is empty, where the ox used to plough. All these words, they are gone. Where do we go now? It's quite powerful. So my ask of you is, throughout this session, again, Katie and I are all about doing, and we ask just to share your thoughts with others, and use the chat for this. Share your thoughts, jump in, start conversations, and lead with curiosity. But for me, this poem that Fee wrote, it's a call to action if ever there was one. It makes me reflect on the fact that there's lots and lots happen in this fast-paced world, and it just could pass us by. But when someone stops and takes stock of it, like Robert Macfarlane and Jackie Morris and Fee, it helps us all to pause in our busy lives and consider what it actually means now and for the future. Pass over to Katie.
Sorry, too many clicky buttons. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you, Christine. Maybe using the chat rather than the Q&A, but welcome to also start loading questions into Q&A if you've got them for us. I'm going to show you a slide in a minute. Now, we're going to do this really quickly as an example of an activity that we've done with staff in the past. But on the next slide, I'm going to show you some pictures. So just in your mind, have a think about a picture, the first one that kind of, your eyes focus in on, and why does it resonate with you? Why does it stand out to you? Okay. Maybe if it will let me move my slides. Oh, there we go. So just for a few seconds, just have a look and see if there's anything that stands out to you. So we do this as an activity with staff, often when we're starting carbon literacy training, and just to get them to think about things that we like in our lives, things that bring us joy, that or something exciting that we like to do, whether that's sitting quietly reading a book, going to a festival, going traveling out in the countryside. They're all things that we enjoy. But actually, if we think about the Sustainable Development Goals, we can apply all of these things that we do to something that is a goal to try and have a lesser impact on our world. So if you don't mind, really quickly in the chat, just so that we know our audience, would anybody be willing to just post kind of either on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is never really seen the Sustainable Development Goals before, and 5 is you know them really well? Just post your 1 to 5. Okay. Good. I like the peaceful stream too as well, thank you. And all of them, really, all of them speak to me. Maybe that's why I picked them in the first place. Okay, so 3s, 4s, 5s, so okay, that's fine. Just to give us an idea, so I won't labour this bit then. So if you think about your picture, you might be able to think about what could you relate, like which sustainable development goals match to that picture. So for example, if I was thinking about the nature one and the stream, then I might think about clean water, I might think about good health and well-being, I might think about infrastructure, even potentially, and trying to preserve that land. I might think about life below water and life on land, climate action, responsible consumption. So we can see that everything in our lives, everything that we do, everything that we love, links in somewhere to those SDGs. And what we need to do to understand the impacts that we have, because unfortunately everything that we do has an impact, and how we can then support nature. So feel free to kind of share any links that you've got to those. Interestingly, we were thinking about this in terms of technology, and you're all kind of learning technologist kind of thing, I think is your role and jobs in education. We thought about doing the activity differently, and as I went to go and find some new slides and pictures, my PowerPoint is lagging behind me here. Let's see if it's going to move. We started using stock images to do that. And as I put up the stock images and tried to find things instead, and using just on PowerPoint and insert stock, it wouldn't let me come up with anything negative. So when I searched for no poverty or just poverty, that is what I got, that there was no match. Not one, nothing, no picture that stock images could find. And I thought that's quite interesting. I also did the same thing. I went to Google and I put in poverty, and I got some, heartbreaking pictures. When I filtered by Creative Commons license, again, most of them disappeared. And when I filtered again by commercial license, whatever the other one is, again, there was hardly anything there. And so what that did for me was highlight just that kind of greenwashing in terms of the technical, the knowledge, the access to information, just highlighting, those algorithms, what we're allowed to see, and how that impacts. And in education, we are trying to share and educate students and learners about real life global issues, but there's that hidden hurdle to overcome in terms of licensing and what big businesses like Microsoft and Google are actually maybe allowing us to see. So it's just something to think about, and just remember that, you know, sometimes we don't always see the true picture. Okay, so let me see if I can move. So the Sustainable Development Goals, you know, they've obviously been there for a while now. Their mission helps us to recognise and think about specific targets and actions, and understand how they're interrelated. Thinking about how we can act individually and locally and globally. We do have the SDG Accord, which you might have heard of. So the purpose of that is to inspire, celebrate and advance the critical role that education has in delivering the SDGs, and the value of those interlinked objectives that brings to the government, businesses and wider society. And additionally, it's a commitment by learning institutions to one another to do more to deliver the SDGs, and they are reported on annually as well. We also in colleges have professional standards for college lecturers, but interestingly, there is only one mention within all of the professional standards about sustainability, and how we have a role in educating young people, well, any learners, any age, about sustainability. I'm not sure what that looks like in universities, and obviously that's only for academic staff and teaching staff that they see that. But we all do have a role somewhere within there to reach that target by 2030, maybe. So in line with having a poem, I've got another one here, and I'm actually just going to let you sit for a wee minute and just have a read of this on the screen. Okay, so doesn't it sound lovely? And it kind of takes those sustainable development goals and makes them into something that's coherent, and you can almost see, you know, it sounds like this utopian world. So it is now approaching 2030, and one thing that we've learned along the way is that we all have a zone of control, or a zone of influence, or a locus of control, and you might have heard of this if you've done work around sustainability. So we support our students and staff to understand, but also to feel that they aren't helpless in this. That anything that they do, even if it's a small thing, can have an impact, and that it can make a difference. Our learners are the future managers, they're future scientists, healthcare workers, electricians, plumbers, you name it. And their actions in this world can all have an influence locally, and hopefully then that everybody doing something locally, we get to the global part. So in a project recently, which Christine's going to explain more about in a bit, we did some carbon literacy training with a group of students in doing their Bachelor of Arts in Dance, so degree, and they were kind of doing their final degree show. And it was based around carbon literacy. So we did some carbon literacy training with them. And what was clear was that they started to feel more anxious. The more understanding they had, the more we told them that you know, you could see them getting stressed out and feeling helpless, and it was quite horrible. And it's exactly how we all feel as well. But then we spent time as we went through the training, and we got to the kind of what is our zone of influence and control, and that we can all do small things. And by the end of the project, they'd choreographed a beautiful, haunting, quite teary, educational, but also really hopeful piece about how we can all be part of that movement in any way that we can, and any tiny thing, and just having awareness is the first step. So I'm going to pass back to Christine, and she's going to talk about all that we do around the college to try and help with that.
Thanks, Katie. So Dundee and Angus College created their own climate emergency action plan to help with a variety of things, like ensure our climate aims and objectives are in line with college strategy, keep us on track with regards to net zero, a whole host of things. But we also use the EAUC's Climate Action Roadmap to really help with our own action plan, to bring together the 5 main themes of leadership and governance, learning, teaching and research, estates and operations, partnerships and engagement, and data collecting and reporting. We also categorise it into 3 areas: whether you feel you're an emerging, established or leading institution. You self-select, but actually it was really helpful with our planning and for progression. So creating our CAP, because we all love an acronym, so it's called the CAP, has had lots of benefits. It's used for the SDG Accord reporting. We use it for Funding Council reporting. We consider it in terms of college-wide strategy and lots of other things internally as well. To be honest, it has created a whole college culture around sustainability. It would probably be rare that academic development would work so hand in hand with estates, but we do now. We share learning, we create joint plans, and the bit that I really love is that our head of estates and our environment officer are the biggest advocates and supporters of sustainability and learning and teaching. We also shared our CAP with other colleges and universities, as it was looked at as good practice throughout the sector. And to borrow the terminology from the climate literacy training, where the carbon footprint is about your direct impact on climate, and the carbon handprint is about the indirect impact. So we think teaching is a carbon handprint, where we teach about climate or wider sustainability that might spur action that would then become an impact on the carbon footprint. The CAP includes carbon footprint and handprint activities for the whole college, allowing crossover and full institutional learning. So you can see our little logos on the screen, and as our CAP brings together the footprint and the handprint, which very much creates our college culture for sustainability. And we focus in on the SDGs, although there's lots of other frameworks, but we do focus in on the SDGs. And to be honest, it has become part and parcel of our way of working. I've also popped the wedding cake version of the SDGs in here, as it's more akin to reality, in that we use it quite a lot. But as a college, we do focus in on society an awful lot and economy. So Katie, myself and a few others really assumed the mantle of supporting people to connect the foundational layer of the biosphere, which underpins all living in the world. We know that, but actually it helps people understand that they're already working in some aspect of sustainability. And in all truth, we normally find we're having to keep the biosphere element a little bit alive throughout the college, because we do focus in on society and economy, and that's all right. So we know that the term think global, act local is used a lot, but actually we find that think local, act local, to get people ready to think global is more akin to where we're at the moment. You can see on this next slide that we've got this satellite diagram, and this is really about the academic development team and our move towards education for sustainable development. So in this satellite diagram, we've got some elements that we've been directly involved in, and we'll do a wee bit of a deep dive into a few of these. But this is just a small team working on ESD that contributes to one of the 5 themes of the CAP. And actually, if you think about the impact, if there were 5 more whopping satellite diagrams like this, that's covering an institution like ours. All of a sudden, you realise the amount of time and effort that goes into pushing sustainability. It's quite inspiring. Even the beautiful picture of our No Mow May in our Broth campus, not everybody likes No Mow May now, but our Broth campus, I think it helps just to visualise the roots of our team philosophy and our passion and drive. But before I move on, I'm going to just mention that the official start of our sustainability journey as a team really was when EAUC and Learning for Sustainability Scotland came in and piloted the Sustainability in Colleges courses with us in 2019. And it all grew from there, so it really is a shout out to them. They did help kickstart us. Katie mentioned that the current theme for us is locus of control with regards to education for sustainable development, or ESD. But it also is regards to the hidden curriculum of the whole wider college world and the whole college approach, that culture. So you'll hear that a wee bit as we head through the next few slides. So the next one for us is about a lecturer professionalism pathway. So this is the professional learning journey of a new lecturer in D&A College. That central line represents the induction phase, pre-qualifications, and then the final post-qualification phase, where career-long professional learning is the main component of learning. All of these lie within our locus of control. So we tend to teach others about teaching, by demonstrating and doing rather than just talking and explaining the theory. So to do this, we need to teach something. So where possible, we've moved that topic to include SDGs and meta skills, another area which as a team we support throughout the college. So historically, we've included EDI elements in here where we could, but it also gives us room to focus on a topical SDG or similar and deliver a bit of learning by stealth around sustainability. We do make it explicit though. Sometimes it's completely integral to the content of the course. For example, we discuss, explore, address the characteristics of our learners on a regular basis. They're central to learning and teaching. But in a college like ours, it makes sense to stop and consider equality and equity and what this means and looks like to many of our learners from low SIMD areas. And also we've got a lot of asylum seekers as well. In fact, we often get a guest lecturer in from our English Learning and Teaching and Training department. And she was one of the ones who's central to D&A College becoming the first college of sanctuary in Scotland. We also created, right in the middle, you'll see Teach at D&A. As a few years ago, we brought it in as a new piece of training for lecturers. We moved away, with a bold move, we moved away from the prescribed SQA qualification because there was a bit of wiggle room for us to do that. We weren't driven by assessment, so it really meant we weren't driven by assessment and the lecturers didn't feel that pressure, which can detract from their overall learning content. We could focus in on the actual theory and practice required in the classroom more than we could previously. We could purposely and strategically weave in sustainability, and the same with meta skills. And we created it to help prepare the lecturers for the next bigger qualification, the actual teaching qualification and further education. So my friend Lou Mycroft often talks about embodying sustainability in learning and teaching, and Katie and I have long talked about naturalising sustainability in learning and teaching. And by making those changes to this pathway that we're in our locus of control, it allows us to naturalise sustainability throughout, and hopefully a good starting point to become part of each lecturer's culture within the college. So next stage, do love a big colourful diagram. Some universities have mapped their curriculums against the SDGs, and we were probably the, if not one of the first colleges to adapt it and then implement it. So I guess the first thing here to say is that the red element, quite a lot of red, and you can see that this is mapping the SVQ Level 2 Horticulture course to the SDGs at the top, and down the left-hand side you can see all the units that the students would go through over the course of a year to achieve the SVQ. So the red is where basically the SDGs are not covered. It's not in the unit specification, it's not in the assessments. The green is where it is explicitly covered. It is in the unit specification and it is in the assessments. And the yellow is that it's not covered in the unit specifications even, but it's taught because it's the right thing to do. That's what we found out from the lecturers. The blue is a work in progress to map student choices where applicable. So if they can choose a topic as part of an assessment of their learning, does it fit with the SDGs? This exercise was done collaboratively with departments, with a few staff initially, just to ensure that there's a collective college understanding of the SDGs and how we read them, because we're very aware if we just ask people to do it, their reading of the SDGs would look different to department. So it allowed us to create a bit of a baseline there. It also allowed us to baseline what's already been done in departments with a view to providing a holistic map of sustainability in the college. We, as a college, work with 32 awarding bodies. So 32 certifying bodies. And that provides us with interesting information about ESD as we progress, and where some awarding bodies actually are more akin and are including more sustainability in their specifications through learning and teaching, and some less so. Horticulture in particular, what I found really interesting was they teach about runoff of pesticides and fertilisers. It's not in their actual specifications, but they do it because it's the right thing to do. So you can see that with life below water. The students need to know about it. They need to understand the consequences of the action of whether they work in countryside management or farming, etc., as they move on. So, and because it makes its way to local water sources, and the lecturers are very, very clear that they know it's usually not a good thing, and they want to make the students aware. It also allows a student journey. a different way of visualising a student journey through their time at the college and their sustainability journey about what they learn and what they don't. So one thing that we found doing this exercise is that we need to be invited in. We're ready, we've put it out there to teams, but it needs to be the right time for the curricular department to invite us in. It might not be on their radar, they might be focused on something else, and this would be or would feel wrong in terms of the sustainability world to go and do this to them. Each team's different, and as much as we advocate for it, it does need to be the right time. So it is a bit of a slow burner, but we've positioned ourselves, and there's the growth of SQA's next generation qualifications, which do include sustainability. So we are getting a lot of chaps in the door at this moment in time. And I think one thing that the teams we've worked with do actually say is they realise that not everything has to be green, because this is just one course. The students' own journey throughout their time at college and beyond will slowly but surely cover all the SDGs. So the one for me, this was so exciting. This was a good one. So last year, I successfully submitted a bid to the Climate Engagement Fund, which is open just now, closing next week, I think, to the Scottish Government for Sunrise Solutions project. And we won it, which was fantastic. But it's based on a project about community conversations, linking climate and energy together, but also with support to consider the financial element too. So to actually run this project in the college, we did 4 main things. So one was upskill internal staff about training on climate literacy, energy and energy savings. Home Energy Scotland partnered with us, and we got support from our own internal Multiply project. And we also upskilled staff around hosting conversations. One of the other elements here was we had 4 specific student groups that were trained in climate and energy and finance, and they were tasked with creating a resource specific to their curriculum to allow members of the wider community to engage and have these vital conversations. So one of these groups was children and young people, level 6, and they created conversation cards, you can see them there, and they hosted conversations with school groups they were on placement with. Our building services students, the heating engineers, they created posters focusing on home heating types and heating loss. And it was so interesting because you immediately read them and go and start implementing things yourself. The HN Textile students' end-of-year project focused on creating garments, utilising dead stock cashmere and having a theme of renewable energy. So you can see their final outputs down the bottom. And Katie mentioned the BA dance students. They choreographed and danced their end-of-year show, and it conveyed climate, energy and finance together. I mean, each of these were amazing. They were really special. And we displayed what we could in the evening of the dance show as a bit of a grand finale for the project. And I personally found the dance so powerful. I was totally in tears. The content included a voiceover from a colleague and friend whose house was completely flooded out a couple of years ago with Storm Babbitt. And yeah, it was emotional. But again, training and conversations throughout the college were central to this project. And student groups had delivery and wider conversations around climate, energy and finance. And conversations were hosted in our public-facing areas, such as the restaurant, and utilised the recordings of the dance to help inspire further conversations, and the conversation cards helped as well. So in total, about 12 staff members were upskilled in the bigger upskilling package. We had about 450 staff and students attended workshops and participated in conversations. We had over 1,000 staff and students that we know of received information via digital element. We had 4 classes, created those amazing resources you can see. Numerous conversations were hosted through multiple means in our restaurants, to the dance shows, and 400 external community members engaged with conversations as well. So almost 2,000 people engaged in climate conversations. So this was definitely about volume for us. But my goodness, we got a lot of information from it. There is a legacy webpage, the link is there, so when this goes out afterwards, do feel free to have a look and you can see one of the practice runs of the dance in there. But our findings, the students are interested and super keen to make changes. So this is a shift for us in the college world. It is growing. There were promises galore came from the students to change transport methods and beyond. Almost all promised to reduce their shower time, and one person even said they would reduce their shower time from 90 minutes to 60 minutes, which is quite a lot when you're a 16-year-old. I'm still looking over a 90-minute shower. There was a want for leadership from youth. It's quite controversial. Some people say we shouldn't need lead like this, but actually that's what was asked for. They actually said Greta Thunberg was getting a bit old these days. They wanted somebody new and younger. The resources created, breathtaking, I think you'll agree. And the power and the pride to be involved in a project like this meant so much to our students, more than we ever anticipated. So there is a desire for more. That has come through loud and clear. They want information and practical ways to make a difference and to feel that they want to make a difference. And what really came through is the real view and worry for the future. And we're talking mid-teens, so we've got 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds in here, worried about the future for their children, and even the school kids that actually took part with their conversation cards. Yeah. So the big thing for us is we need to continue to empower this next generation. We need to keep upskilling them. They're asking for support to make a positive difference and are overwhelmed by the mixed messages. So they do need education as a trusted messenger to rely on. I'll pass over to Katie.
Sorry, I didn't mean to move the slide. It wasn't a hint, Christine, I promise.
Thought it was.
I was reading the chat. So we won't be much longer. We are aware of time. So just a few last slides. So you might have heard of the Global Goals teaching, which runs every year. So this is run by the SOS UK. And you can pledge. So in March, it runs throughout the whole of March now. It used to be a week, and then they changed it to the full month of March. So everyone can join in, whether you're HE, FE, or schools, just to help raise awareness collectively. So whatever you teach, whatever subject you teach, there's a way to link SDGs into the delivery. And not just in March, but at any time. But what we found is that often it's like a little dip of toe in the water, and it also just brings it to the forefront of people's minds to think about doing something and be really proactive and purposeful about doing something. There's so many resources online to support you. I teach in science, I teach a lot of chemistry, and the Royal Society of Chemistry has lots of resources and even like worksheets and everything, all pre-prepared lesson plans, and it shows exactly the links to SDGs and what you can do. So every year I do that, but I also, link within my curriculum as well. I've also discovered that AI is pretty good for this. If you, tell it what you're teaching and ask it to kind of help find the links and plan things, it'll even help you with activity ideas to do it. And it's just a way to help promote that kind of global citizenship and just remind students just the relevance of everything that they're learning. There's a way to be thinking about our world and just understanding that, especially thinking back to a lot of the time, where we are, we're quite lucky at the moment in that we don't see all of the full impacts, and we can kind of close our eyes to it, especially when the algorithms hide those pictures and images and everything else from us. But it helps the students to see that and hopefully give them some idea of where in their future careers they might be able to kind of help and support the world and make changes as well, and just inspiring those conversations. I was thinking back to a talk Christine and I did ages ago where we talked about these things, and the amount of conversations I have with students just about random things because they are interested and they do care. And it's not always part of the curriculum or what I'm teaching. It's just the general chit chat, and that's where a lot of the deep conversations come in. And they are passionate and they do care. The other thing that we do, which is definitely kind of something that Christine and we've been working on for a while. We've got all these special interest groups that do lots of different things, and they are definitely more down the community of practice in terms of just bringing together people that have a lot of passion for this stuff around the college. And what you'll see down at the bottom is some students in the workshop, and they're building hedgehog houses. And we'd done some work around some of this, and then when one of the big storms hit and around kind of Dundee and Angus area, one of our local hedgehog rescues was completely flooded out and they lost everything. And actually we donated to there and another hedgehog rescue, I think last year, about 20 hedgehog houses. And there's more being made again this year. Students get involved from schools like the senior phase groups and some of the kind of specific college and apprenticeships and everything. They don't just make hedgehog houses, they've made feeding stations, they've made little like pathways for them to go through fences. We've got bird boxes, all sorts of things. You can see there's some like Thrive shops that we have. We've got a lecturer who works with a lot of students kind of in the support area, and they had like a zero waste shop for a while that was on one of the campuses. You could go in and get all your groceries and everything from there. So we have our Hedgehog Friendly Campus Award. We got our silver, and we also have like neurodiversity special interest groups thinking about how we support equity and equality around the college as well. So these just bring a lot of different people together, and again, they're really about that handprint rather than just the footprint. So I'm going to pass back to Christine for some final reflections, and then we've got potentially, if we've got time, we've got a quick quiz for you.
Yeah, I'm thinking we could probably do the quiz at the same time as the Q&A.
Yeah.
So I guess we've done this for a wee while, and again, there's only a few reflections in here. There could be a whole other hour, but this is more in terms of like focus on your locus of control. It's more about staying sane. Focus on what you can actually control, what you can actually do, and what you can achieve, and what you hope the impact might be. In terms of the contentious areas, talking about climate can be a contentious area. Social and economics elements, we find less so, but be prepared for the odd awkward conversation if you go here. But our big key thing here is it's not our job to change people's minds or counteract climate deniers. It's to lead with science and passion. There's also an interesting number of conversations being had around first world countries' use of technology and the consequences of this. Digital is the future, but we can't ignore the environmental impact, particularly in an educational setting. So we keep having these conversations around how digital is our saint and our sinner at the same time. So it's just being mindful and notice it and talk about it and being honest about it. Within curriculum, there's a growing and welcome trend to explicitly include sustainability in learning and teaching, but for all roles in education, there's always scope for ethical inclusion of sustainability. We are technically a support team, but sustainability as an SDGs are deeply rooted in our team ethos, our work, our behaviours. I do think it's here that we have to ask the all-important questions, though, around what's the purpose of an educational institution? It's not solely about education. It is about education. It's not solely about curriculum and assessments and qualifications. The hidden curriculum of the estate is so important. The culture and the support are where learning occurs as well. And actually, it's where crucial memories are made. If I think back to my years at university, I can't necessarily remember what happened in the lectures or the content, but my memories are drawn to things that happened in and around the college campus. Don't be afraid to jump in. There's always people who are more knowledgeable and qualified around sustainability as a whole, but not in your area and not in your role. You know what it means to be you, and just run with that, I would say. Jump in, listen carefully, lead with curiosity, and learn together, and enjoy it. Enjoy it. There's always more to do. And this is my final one, and this is for me, my final reflection. There's always more to do. And it's about making sure that you are sustainable. So go easy on yourself, and most importantly, surround yourself with like-minded people. I think it was lovely, Kirsten from Learning for Sustainability Scotland's like Christine, find your tribe. You need to find your tribe. So if your cup becomes half empty, your tribe will help you top your cup up, your green cup. We've got another slide that's got lots of support details on it. We'll fly through that. You can have a look at that afterwards. And if Katie, if you want to stick up, there's a couple of forms here. I'll pass over to Katie to explain them, and we can get on with the Q&A.
Thank you, Christine. So one of the things we've been doing this semester is we made some SDG quizzes. So we have a 16-week semester and there's 17 SDGs, so they were almost correct. And we started it a week early before the students started back. And these were made available to students and staff, but to staff the week in advance, so that if they wanted to use them with students, then they had a week to kind of have a redo it themselves first and practice and think about how they would use it with their students. We've made these open access, these two for you. We've picked two of them kind of on different topics, just so you can have a see. You're welcome to have a go at them. Use the QR code and I'll put the links up into the chat. There's only 10 questions, but 9 of them are like quick MCQs, and then the last one is kind of a personal question for yourself. They were very interesting to make. It was really hard to come up with kind of just 9 questions that gave a real introduction. So these were designed so that, you know, students or staff that had very little to zero knowledge could still could learn from them as well. And when you submit the answers, you get information and explanations of all the questions, often with links to where you can go and read more and find out where we got that data from. So feel free to have a look at those ones and come back and ask us more if you would like. And we'll pass over to question and answer if there are any. So thank you very much for your time.